So today I have another special episode. Welcome to the Soul Journey channel in the series of fear. I have another great guest for conversation. I'm really excited to share the space with you, Anik. So it's Anik Melanfant. Just tell us a little bit of about yourself and your background and where you are and what you're doing today.
Well, thank you for having this beautiful space. I'm excited to share in this conversation with you. My name's Anik Melanfant. My mission is to empower visionaries and change makers to awaken their inner wisdom, to create joy-filled lives and leave a soul-satisfying legacy. So that is what gets me out of bed every morning. I love creating change and seeing what's possible for people. I started my journey over 10 years ago in the holistic realm. I'm an ex-broker, so I used to work in the financial realm. I took a leap of faith myself and really allowed my intuition to guide me to what I was here to be a conduit for. And where I am today is I get to share the wisdom that's working through me with my clients, with my students. I get to teach, I get to spend time with my soulmate, I get to be a witness to the unfolding of my beautiful daughter's journey. And I get to share that with other people like yourself in our community to create a new vision for the world that's possible for all of us. So I'm really excited to share time and space here with you today, because I feel like this will be one of those beautiful ripples that we get to create today.
Yeah, and we met each other at a course that we took like 3 years ago now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was our first meeting, and then we kind of our energies kind of were drawn to each other, and then when I was looking at um who else and everything, it's all organic and everything falls into place when I just ask, okay, who can I have next to have a meaningful conversation on this topic to help spread good vibes. I'll just keep it broad like that. And when your name popped up, I was like, yes, we need to have it and share this space together. So, um, having the topic of fear within the series, you mentioned some really interesting points when I first reached out. So, and you mentioned change, how fear will rise up as soon as we're faced with change within our life. How you can, the floor is yours. You can elaborate as all you want.
Well, I love that you're tackling such a big and powerful and transformational topic, because fear is the biggest obstacle that any of us will ever face. And if we can overcome the fear of change, we can do anything.
Yep.
Anything in this world. We can all create the world that we would feel really good leaving as a legacy to our children. So one of the things that really jumped out at me when we were talking about this is that all change requires a leap of faith. And that's something that I love to talk about, because there's a requirement, a necessity for all of us to take that leap of faith. As soon as you're moving from what you know to what you don't know, that's a leap. And 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago now, when I got the call from the universe, if you will, that I needed to shift and pivot into a different direction and walk away from something that I had built that looked great on paper to do something that people thought I had lost my mind a little bit. My poor mom turned every shade of green when I told her I was leaving my pension, my security, my cushy office. I left all the accolades behind. And when I look back now, it's so funny because people ask me all the time, it's like, wow, like how courageous. And I never even thought of it that way, because there was such a massive calling that every cell in my body knew that I needed to make that change, even though everyone around me thought I had lost my mind completely. And now when I look back, I can't even imagine what my life would have been if I wouldn't have taken that leap of faith.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I love about our conversation that we're having is demystifying fear and taking the leap of faith, because realistically, every time we do something different, it's a leap, it's a baby step. And when we allow ourselves to like release that fear, then we allow ourselves to release the limitations of
Yeah.
what we can leap into.
Mm.
So that's powerful. Like, I can't imagine where I would be. Like, I wouldn't be living my best life with my soulmate. I wouldn't be enjoying watching my beautiful daughter grow up. I wouldn't be spending time meditating and taking care of myself and having like thoughtful conversations. I'd be watching the stock ticker. I'd be reading financial statements. I'd be buying the next new shoes. You know, like my life would have looked very, very different. And not that that's a bad thing, like there's no judgment in any path,
Mm.
but for me the biggest change is the level of satisfaction that I have when I wake up in the morning. I'm actually still waking up in the same bed, well, not the same bed, but the same bedroom that I did, you know, like over 10 years ago. And when I wake up now, I'm excited about the life and what my day has to share with me. And so I never look back and go, oh, wow, I'm so glad that I didn't leap.
Yeah. And in that zone, in that life structure that you've created for yourself, in taking that leap of faith, it opens up, like it's almost, and I see the way that energy speaks to me is always through visual. I see pictures and images, and as you were talking, it's like your first life 10 years ago was like more walking into it in like a big tunnel, where it was always the same thing every day. So you knew exactly what to do. Your body was starting to live automatically, and because it was set at the exact same thing every single day. And when you change, when you took the leap of faith, it's like you noticed along your way in your tunnel there was this window, and that caught your attention, and then you decided to not live in in that tunnel anymore and go out the window and see what the light was there, and just see all the beauty around it. And then so as soon as you took the leap of faith, you life just completely changed for you. It opened up in all this beauty. And yeah, so when I for myself too, just as soon as I get uncomfortable, it's because life is asking me to grow. Life is asking me to choose something else, to do something else, to take a different action, to take another step, and also to release different things. And it always, 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 always leads me, and I know you too, to amazing destinations. So, um, how does that look for you in releasing any fear or any energies that may be holding us back into taking that leap of faith to bring change into our life?
Well, that reminds me of an analogy I used a while ago when somebody posed a similar question. And so what I shared with them is, because they're asking like, well, everyone wants to take a leap of faith, but we still got bills to pay, we still have responsibilities, et cetera, and so on, right? Like here's all the reasons of my current reality why I can't shift and
Yeah.
pivot, right? And I think that's the biggest obstacle for most people. And so what came through, and it's showing up again, so I want to share it, is can you imagine if you were still working that first job you ever got? Like the very first job. And if you stayed in that role, making that same kind of money, doing those same things, never learning anything new, never growing, never evolving, never expanding, you would be so bored, you would be dissatisfied, you'd be unhappy, you know, like you'd probably be in the nut house, you know, like kind of, you would not be in a good spot, right? And so when we think about it is, we take leaps of faith all the time. Some
Mhm.
of them we socially validate on paper as acceptable risks, and others we demonize as being this luxury or this wild, crazy idea. And so when we look at it and we really give ourselves permission to reflect and really recognize the journey that we've all been on, is that every time you did anything new, you took a leap of faith, no matter how big or small. And so when we look back, we can already see, hey, we already have all this inventory. And the other thing is that everything that you want that you don't already have in your current experience requires change and requires you to overcome and address whatever fear it is that's holding you back from moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And fear is just fear. Fear is a construct of the mind. It's not a real tangible thing. There's a discernment that I think's important for us to have consciously and to support our subconscious and understanding is there is a very big difference between actual danger and perceived fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we need to talk about more, and going, it's not a danger, it's a down the line, maybe one of these days, what if? It's like, no, now you're like, this is you projecting worst case scenario into your future, which your subconscious is super good at.
Yep.
So one of the things, and this is unfortunately the catalyst for a lot of people that I notice, but not what I've been seeing more and more, which is really encouraging, is less often now than before. But what I used to notice before is that the level of desire for change used to have to be more powerful than the fear itself. Yeah. So it's like you'd back yourself almost into a corner so that you would overcome your fear to do the thing that you wanted to do.
Yes.
And the reality is you're going to get to that launching off point, whether you go willingly or whether you get dragged kicking and screaming. Like
no
it's
matter
happening.
what.
It's happening. Like you're going there. Your soul's already decided, like, this is happening. So you can go joyfully,
yeah,
and like really have a fun adventure, or you can let your fear drive you and direct your life and keep you in that survival space, if you will, right? Because otherwise, you're choosing between survival and thriving, right? And it's really interesting because we think, well, I need to give up my safety in order to thrive. And that is like one of the biggest BS stories that our subconscious will tell us. That's not true at all. I mean, we can make small steps towards change that are completely safe and supported in our current environment and keep moving that line.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually the opposite. The more that you live in that life, the more that you live in that vibration, it strengthens that self-confidence, which then ties into the security that we long for and that we need. So it's actually the very opposite.
I know. And what's true as well, I love that you brought that up, because what's true as well is if you stay exactly where you are and you never grow, what happens is the resources and the security that you're depending on actually starts to dwindle.
Yeah.
Like if you were still in that first job, you wouldn't be making enough money to buy your house. You certainly wouldn't be making enough money to support your family. You know what I mean? Like if you stay where you are, kind of like I can't remember the name of the story, but it's like the mouse and the cheese. It's like a really old tale. But it's like if the mouse didn't go out looking for the cheese and was just like, well, there's some cheese here, eventually you run out of that cheese.
Yeah.
And then that's when you starve. But if you allow yourself to expand, it actually supports you in expanding more security, more resources, more safety, and like more opportunities, which actually keeps you safe. So the equation is incorrect in the subconscious for most of us. Just, play it safe, play small, like keep it close to home, and then that way you'll be safe. It's like, well, what if the well runs dry? You've never explored anywhere else. Like that puts you in a really poor position for longevity and security.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I used this example actually just on Monday, and we were talking about the similar topic, and I said, imagine that you're used to taking, let's say, the Highway 11 every single day of your life. Well, that's just a straight highway. You're just going in a straight line. You're putting your car in cruise control. You're setting the speed, and all you have to do is just turn when the road is a little bit windy. Other than that, it's just straight, and you don't see anything other than trees and passing cars. So the energy is really just really linear, really narrow. And just one day you decide to, I'll just take the back roads. It's going to lead me exactly to the same destination. But during that trip, you notice, wow, there's actually so much beauty in it, but it's going to lead you to to the same destination, which in this example would be safety.
Mhm.
And but the journey is so different. It's beautiful, and along that windy, pretty road, you notice other types of road that you can one day when you feel secure enough, oh, I'm just going to go over here, see where this leads me, and then it leads you to this amazing waterfall, and it's this amazing place. It just keeps on being discovered as soon as we decide to take just the first step.
Yes. I love that you shared that, because something that came through, and I love how we're like so in sync, because I had something similar come through, but it was like the message that I got was the path to your soul satisfying life is not linear.
Mm,
It will not follow your checklist.
mm-mm.
So you need to let that go.
I just
And
got
I had
somebody.
like my little checklist of all the things I needed to do to be happy,
Mm,
to be proud of myself, to be a worthwhile contributor to community, to be successful. And so I had my little checklist. And then when I got to the last of the check boxes, that's when I started to ask, I was like, okay, well, when is the happiness? Like, when's the satisfaction? Like, because you're excited for a little while when you have that achievement, and then you're like, okay, on to the next goal, right? It's really fleeting. So it's just like, when's like what I was promised, this happy
yes.
life, this fulfillment, when does that show up? Like, how many of these rungs on the ladder do I have to climb until I get there? And actually asking that question is when that window showed up for me.
Hmm.
Was, isn't there more to life than this? Like, what more is there? Like, am I gonna get like another higher paying position, another promotion, and like more windows for my office, like a nicer car, like like more friends, like more trips, more vacations, like what, like isn't there like I was looking for more depth
Hmm.
in my experience, and I simply asked the question. And I think asking questions and putting it out into the universe is such a powerful way to catalyze change for ourselves, because that's what it started with me, is there's got to be more to life than this. And that simple question, and I asked wholeheartedly, openly. And back then I was not spiritual, I didn't believe in anything, I didn't know anything about energy, and it didn't matter, because the universe found a way to talk to me in a way that I understood.
Yeah.
And I know that to be true for everybody.
Yeah.
um so I want to share with you and our viewers the three core elements that I feel are absolutely necessary in order for people to take a leap of faith and soar. So this is, when I look back, I was like, here are the three key things that we can proactively develop in order to make this like jumping off a cliff thing way less freaking out, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're jumping out of a plane, you train, you learn how to pack your bag, you know all the things, you have all the checks, you know like how to pull the thing. But we can actually develop certain capabilities and characteristics within ourselves to make this leap much easier.
Yeah.
And what I discovered is that, and we talked about this before, is having a really well developed capacity for discernment. So I think like self-awareness is such a necessary skill for humans. Because if you know the story of your subconscious mind and the story of your fear, you can stay one step ahead of it. But if you don't know the little game that it plays with you, it's going to win. If
Yeah.
you don't know the rules of engagement, that's it. You've already lost. But if you can discern between that soft whisper of your higher self, higher wisdom, soul, and that sometimes loud scream
And
from your
rigid.
fear survival self,
Yeah.
yeah, because that one's louder. So we tend to listen to it
And it's more
naturally,
rigid. It's
yeah,
rigid.
it's like, do this now. And sometimes, and this, you've probably had this experience, because I find the more you grow and evolve and the more you pick up on its tricks, it gets sneakier. So you can't, it grows with you. And so there's, it's an ongoing experience where you keep growing with it, because then it'll be like, hi, this is your intuition talking, right? So it'll actually, once it becomes obvious for you what it is, it'll up its game. So then you get an opportunity to discover yourself even more deeply, right? So it's an ongoing experience that you get to have.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm fine. You probably find that's true too, right? Like as soon as you know all of your ego's tricks, like it's got a new one. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I haven't seen that one yet. Like it's really, it's
Yeah.
like, are you still there? You know,
I thought I got rid of you. Like, what are you
we worked
doing?
through this already.
But
There
what
you are.
but what I find is I love that you mentioned the soft whisper and the soft voice of your intuition and your higher guidance, because it does start that way. But
Mhm.
as you work on turning up the volume, and then it gets louder, but it's not the same loudness as the fear or as the uncertainties. It's a different type of loud where it just consumes your body. So you just have to play around it in that feeling, and I love that too, because it does happen. It'll sneak up, but then you're like, oh wait, is that coming from the same place? Oh, I'm gonna go work through that, and to make that my intuition even louder and even more consuming. So yes, I love that you share that. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, when you think about it, our instincts and our intuition, and I know some people use that term interchangeably, but I find that's a disservice, because it's two sets of data that we're getting within ourselves, and learning to discern between where is the source of information coming from is essential.
It is.
Absolutely. Like in
Mhm.
order to like get around on this planet, you need to discern between, is this an actual dangerous experience, or is this my fear trying to keep me in a situation that I am ready to grow out of? And I'll find, and I love that you brought that up, because the next thing that's required is developing your intuition. When you can really learn to open up those channels, and we all have the capacity to, we all have different clairs, we all have different natural abilities. When
Mhm.
we can quiet the mind and silence the body and just listen and learn to listen, everything and every answer we could ever ask, it's like the vault opens, right? It's all there for the taking, right? It's like, what should I do? It's like every question you could ask, the answer is already inside of you, like for everything, which is
Yeah.
so fun. It's like, but we naturally, and you probably see this a lot, I see this a lot more socially, is we, our knee-jerk reaction is to ask out here.
Yep.
What are other people doing? What do they think I should do? You know, like, what do other people do in this situation? What's the right thing to do? So it's
Social
all, we're all trying
validation.
to, you know, find out from out here
Yeah.
what the decision for us is. But each and every one of us, that decision is going to be very unique,
Hmm.
right? Because what's right for you is not necessarily right for me. We might end up doing the same things, but I need to come to that decision from my space, and you need to come to that decision from your space. So having that intuition developed allows us to make the best decisions for ourselves, because then we have the best set of data to
Yeah.
work from.
Yeah. And social validation is something that it's we see it on a daily basis. I see it with my kids. You probably see it with your daughter on a certain extent, and it's part of our human existence to want to belong,
Yeah.
and that's completely okay, because we're community beings. We're meant to live within a community of some sort. And where it gets tricky is if you've never really felt like you belong before, and when you start to be in the self-discovery journey, or when something attracts your attention and you just want to grab on, then everything, all your internal power goes outside yourself to hopefully fulfill that longing for belonging, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
it absolutely does. And it brings to mind something that a mentor of mine shared a while ago that just really stuck with me. And it's like, especially because I work with so many like visionaries and change makers and transformational catalysts like yourself. And it's like, you're not here to fit in, right? But you do belong.
Yeah.
So it's like, because if we're here to fit in, nothing would change.
No.
And so we're here to change things. And in order for that to happen, we need to be different.
Yeah. I love that.
Than the social norm, if you will. And what I love about what I'm seeing in the shift in our society is a recognition of the value of that individual expression of self.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we find a happy medium, there's always an extreme to things throughout transition, but like you choosing to live or do or be or say in the way that is an integrity with your heart and
Yeah.
that's true to your soul's purpose, I think it brings so much value to the evolution of the world as a whole. And when you think about it as entrepreneurs, like an entrepreneur is a person who is doing something different in order to be of service to the world, right? Because otherwise we don't have jobs,
Yeah.
right? We go work
True.
for another company who built a company in order to be of service to the world by doing something different.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
So it's really, I find it's just like really interesting how there's such a dichotomy. It's like, and I think it's like really old world where a lot of our school system was originally developed to create really great employees for the industrial age.
Yeah.
And even though that's not the intention of the teachers and the principals and the school districts these days, there is like this old generational pattern that's still a subtle influence of how we conform to the expectation of different levels of authority and
Yeah.
what's expected and how they're graded and all of that stuff, right? That's like, we could have a whole other conversation on
We
that.
could.
Yeah. And so I mentioned 3, so I want to get to the third one before I forget. So the third thing that I think people need to develop in order to take a leap of faith and soar, and this really plays hand in hand with developing discernment and awakening your intuition, is while you're doing that, you are building your self-trust. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to trust yourself to jump. Because you're the only one who can open your wings. No one else can do it for you. No one's going to come to your rescue. No one's going to go live your life for you and create positive change in your reality, right? That's external.
Yep.
Right? Your car is not going to make you a new person, although that's probably what it says on the radio, right? But that's not how it works.
Get this car, you'll feel better.
Yeah, I know. Actually, that's so similar. It came to mind, but Terry and I heard almost an exact, your car defines who you are. And we both looked at each other. We're like, turned off the radio. We're like, wow, talk about subliminal messaging. Because when you're driving, you're in your subconscious patterns.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, way to seed a belief there. So we're like, delete, delete, delete. Oh, thank you. You know, what I'm driving doesn't dictate who I am as a person. This expression doesn't dictate who I am, you know, as an infinite being, really, you know. Yeah. So for me, those are the 3 must-haves: discernment, intuitive development, and self-trust. And then when you have those 3, taking the leap is so much easier, because you're like, I know this is what I need to do. I'm clear on why I need to do this. I can recognize my fear because I know myself well enough to point it out, going, hey, this is just a fear. It doesn't get to vote on whether or not I'm going to live small. And I trust myself enough to figure it out along the way, because that's what we're all doing, really, right? Like nobody's got like this life plan and they know exactly what they're doing. We're all just figuring it out one moment at a time.
Just like parenting.
Yeah, exactly like parenting, right? But we're just kind of like parenting ourselves, right? As adults, really, it's the only big shift is like, instead of taking care of someone else, you have to take care of yourself and someone else, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I love those order, and as you were mentioning them just like little 30 seconds ago, I can see how they go each hand in hand and how one develops and opens up the other. And
Yeah.
then it leads to the ultimate foundation, which is
Mhm.
self-confidence.
Yes, absolutely. And then when you're confident in yourself, that fear doesn't have any power over you anymore. And so it's like one of the things that I'm a really big proponent of is because you hear like, oh, just like overcome your fear and like be stronger than your fear. And I'm like, don't fight with your fear.
No,
Like,
don't.
don't fight with it. Like, because you're just fighting with yourself,
Yeah.
really. And it's like when we can look at it from a different way. And so when I think of fear, I think of there's this part of myself that is a scared little girl. And I wouldn't be like, stop being afraid. That's irrational. Like, I wouldn't go yell at her. I'd be like, hey, what's up? How can I make you feel more comfortable?
Hmm.
Like, it's going to be fun. Here's what we're going to do. Like, that part of you is lacking in perception. It's
Yeah.
lacking in wisdom. It's lacking in understanding. It's lacking in comfort. It's likely a past wound that it's still healing through.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, okay, here's a great opportunity. This fear is just showing me somewheres that needs more love and compassion, more healing, more attention. And I find like when we fight with those parts of ourselves, we just become a bully
Yeah.
to ourselves and then we don't get anywhere. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, I did all the work. And it's like, well, now you got your black and blue from all of your overcoming of your fear. So the way that I look at it is like, when you overcome fear, it's like I see fear as like the boundary of our comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of people were like, oh, just break through your comfort zone. I'm like, well, then you're kind of like ripping through parts of yourself. And I find a much easier process is to release the fear and then you naturally expand because that's our innate nature.
I have a
Light.
perfect example to put this a concrete image for all the viewers out there that are visual. We went to the pool on last Saturday, and they had two slides, and one was in the shallow end, and the other one was in the deep end. And our kids, our older kids, they wanted to go on the slide, and I was like, well, just try it on the shallow. If it works good on the shallow, I can catch you, and then
Mhm.
if you enjoyed it and you want to go, well, I'll bring you to the deep end. And our 4-year-old wanted to go, and the for some reason the smaller slide was the steepest and highest one. I don't know why, but he got on top and he was so excited to go and so excited to slide. And as he was walking up the slide, he was looking down, and he looked at me. He was like, "This is high," and I was like, yeah, you can do it. He's like, okay. So he gets on top and then he sits down and he's holding on for dear life on both sides. And once your bum is on the slide, you can't get up to go back down because you're gonna slip. So he was holding on, his body was starting to slide, and he was like, Mommy, I'm scared. And I was like, I know, but it's okay. You wanted to go because you thought it was gonna be fun. And as you were talking, I was like, oh my God, this is that. And so I was there encouraging him, like, you can do it. And he was like, I know, but I'm scared. I want to do it, but I'm scared. And I was like, I had my hands open like this. You're probably gonna kick me in the face, but I'm gonna catch you. Like, you're gonna be fine. And so and I love that you bring this up because I say the exact same things. We can't face fear with boxing gloves on. We can't face ourselves with boxing gloves on. It just puts too much tension. It needs to be softer. Just like my kid that was scared on top of the slide, and he slid and I caught him. He was like, "Oh, that went fast. That was fun. I think I'll do it again later." And I was like, "There you go." But it's just I love that. Yeah, I love that. I just wanted to share this example because it's more concrete for other people that are
Yeah.
more visual. Yeah,
Well, realistically, those younger selves of us all still lives within us,
they're all still there.
right? Like our fears come from our past experiences. Our past experiences come from younger versions of ourselves,
Yeah,
right? Like or what we inherited in our genetic programming from birth, right? So it's seated in our fundamental development through childhood a lot of the times. Like a lot of our major programming and a lot of the deeper seated fear comes from that. Yes, there are fears brought on from like adult stage trauma, absolutely. But I think like the general population, most people have some childhood fears that are the biggest obstacles to them experiencing the life that they desire.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
One of the
to
things that I want to share this before we close off, because I wish somebody would have told me this like 11 years ago. would have been it would have kind of gotten me prepared, if you will, is understanding that the leap of faith is not a one and done.
Mhm.
The reality is that you keep jumping. Like you're like, all right, I'm going to make this like big shift in my life. I'm going to do this course. I'm going to learn this thing. I'm going to heal this wound. And every step that you take beyond that experience is another leap of faith.
Yeah.
Is another leap of faith. Is another leap of faith. And the more you jump, the more you get comfortable jumping. The more you develop your discernment, the more you develop your intuition, and the more you gain self-trust and self-confidence. And then the more you get to experience from life, which is the whole point.
It
Right?
is.
Yeah.
It is.
More of the good stuff.
Yeah. There's one last thing that I want to touch upon, just to make sure that everybody really understands the power to just taking that leap of faith. And I know and I understand the courage that it does take, but just like me at the end of the slide, life is there to catch us. We're not gonna fall on our face. Never, 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 never. And everybody have everybody has that this a certain uh group of people that you can always reach out and lean on to give you that extra support that you need. And if you don't, it's really, really important to find that circle of people to have to ensure that you do feel safe whenever you want to do any type of change. But one thing that you said, and I wrote it down, is satisfaction is never guaranteed when you just sit on comfort.
Yeah, exactly.
And we always strive to have satisfaction, to be satisfied with our life. And when we just sit on comfort, on I don't want to change, I'll be satisfied and happy when, it's always a never-ending destination. Just like if you say tomorrow I'll be happy, well, tomorrow never comes, because tomorrow it always is today. So it's just a never-ending vicious cycle in our mind. And I just, yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied, happy, fulfilled are you with your life?
Me personally,
You personally, yeah.
I feel like I would say an 8. And something that I've learned is whenever you get to the top of the scale, that's usually an indicator that you're about to make a big jump, which is actually how I'm feeling these days, which is probably why I'm like, let's talk about a leap of faith, because that's what I'm feeling, that's what I'm experiencing, that's what I'm noticing in the people that I work with.
Yeah.
So, and for you, how fulfilled and satisfied do you feel in your current experience?
I'd say an 8 too. And building up, because I know, like you, yeah, that something's about to change. So
yeah, there's no reaching 10, because there's always room for more.
always.
Right? You don't like, I'm 100% satisfied and I'm just going to sit on the couch now. That's not a reality.
No, and just like a month ago, I thought that I was like, I couldn't get more satisfied and more fulfilled. And then I was guided to do this series on fear, and I was like, what? No, 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 no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go. And but as the conversations evolve, and as I'm putting up more episodes, I'm getting that fulfillment, and I'm understanding why I was guided to do this, and just to have like these amazing conversations, and just to, yeah. So
I want to do a little point of interest, because
yeah.
the ego can so easily sneak in. And so when we're talking about everything that you want that brings more satisfaction into your life is outside of comfort, it's in the in the context of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
what your subconscious recognizes as defined, secure, known.
Yeah.
And everything that lives outside of your comfort zone is undefined, uncertain, and unknown. But it's also, that's where all the good stuff lives. And it is possible to live in an experience of growth and evolution and be comfortable, right? Like, so it's like, it doesn't mean, oh, in order for you to be satisfied, you have to be uncomfortable. It's like,
No.
so there's a discernment between the comfort zone as our subconscious understands it and our state of comfort. Because you can usually, I don't know about you, but when I'm fully satisfied, I'm really comfortable. I'm like, this is good. Ah, yum. Right. So I just wanted to make that discernment just so it didn't
Yes.
like, because I think it might have come out a little funny when I said it the first time, but it's like speaking specifically to the comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's the interpretation and perception of the subconscious mind and what it deems as your safety space.
Yeah.
But over here is not less safe. It's just unknown.
Yeah.
And unknown is not unsafe. It's actually infinite and imbued with possibility of what could be.
It's perfect that you just that was just a little bow to kind of wrap everything up. Yeah, yeah, it's perfect that you mentioned that, because it is really really important to be able to have that awareness about ourselves and our lives and the trajectory that's happening, and always just to stay in a constant state of movement. We always
Mhm.
and movement and is hand in hand with evolution and expansion. So that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final words or final thoughts before we end this conversation?
I feel pretty satisfied. I think we covered everything. I want to thank you for this really powerful conversation. I hope that what we've shared today has supported people in having the courage to ask, what more is there for me?
Yeah.
And like you said, like reach out, ask for support. You don't need to pave the way. So many people have trailblazed and done the inner work, and like the biggest growth that I've experienced has been with the support of other mentors and healers and collaborations with friends and colleagues and like other people. And so yeah, like I used to have a really hard time, and I find mostly women have this experience. Well, no, men and women, let's be honest. It's like asking for help. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I should be strong enough, I should be smart enough, I should, and those are all judgments. But it's like, oh my goodness, if somebody's been where I want to be, I'm like, show me the way. Right. So it's like, don't be afraid to ask for help, to ask for support, to acknowledge that you're moving into a space that's unfamiliar to you. Because if you don't ask, if you don't allow yourself to receive that support, you're also not allowing yourself to receive the abundance and the satisfaction that you're desiring for.
Mm.
So they do come hand in hand, right? It's kind of like one of those things. I remember I wanted to do everything myself, right? Because I'm a retired, like workaholic and a retired stubborn person. But now I'm like, now I've recognized that it's okay for me to be determined
Yeah.
about what my desires, but stubbornness as a quality might have kept me safe in the past, but it creates a rigidity in my journey that obstructs my flow for growth. And so I needed to retire that from, I'm the kind of person who's stubborn. It's like, no, I'm determined, I'm consistent, like I have a vision that's strong in my heart. So I just want to thank you for allowing us to have this space. I hope that this has encouraged just people to take a leap of faith, and knowing that like one little thing that you do different, I would consider that a leap of faith. And just keep taking those leaps and those big jumps, because we don't go from like where we are to where we want to be overnight. Like, for example, I didn't go from working on the stock market to running a 6-figure coaching business. That was not an overnight. That was a bunch of leaps that I took. And without all of those small steps, I wouldn't be living in a much different experience. So I really want people to recognize that it's not, I don't want to, what's the right word? it's a disservice to self to minimize and diminish all of the small steps,
Mhm.
because those small steps is what leads you and builds strengths for those big leaps that you're going to take. They're all important, all of
Yep.
them. And something that I want to leave our viewers with is, what is the smallest, most easiest, most simplest thing that you can do to get started right now?
Many small grains of sand make up a whole beach.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that visual. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Anik, for doing this conversation with me, sharing this space. I love your energy, and I loved the exchange and the flow that was there between us. And I hope that the viewers took some really good key points that Anik brought up, and I hope that you really enjoy this conversation. And just yeah, I challenge you to today when you watch this, what to just ask yourself this question: what can I do to make just even one slight change in my day that will ripple down to your life. So thanks for watching. Again, thank you, Anik. And I'll see you guys soon.